it's Nina Infinity. Welcome to my channel on this Wednesday. This is Breaking the Narrative, and for the first time in a little while, we are live on YouTube because this show is basically a Rumble exclusive now. But today and today only, probably, I don't know if I'll ever have another cool guest like this guy, because this guest is probably the coolest guest I've ever had on, and I'm not afraid to say that. I love this dude. He and I met a little while ago when I started my YouTube career about 4 years ago. I went on a show on a little channel called Orville Nation to talk about this show called Dark Matter that this gentleman is a part of, well, created is more accurate to say. And he's awesome. And we're going to be just chatting and stuff like that. But I wanted to do this on YouTube and X as well because I wanted to have a bigger reach, especially to the younger crowd who may not necessarily know what Stargate is, which is really weird. It's unbelievable to think that somebody wouldn't know what Stargate is, but alas, that is today's day and age. So here we go. Without further ado, Joseph Mallozzi, hello.
Hello, Nina. Not know what Stargate is? How possible?
It's weird, but I've been told by the younger generation, like, what's that? Like, I've actually heard, like, wait, what? And I'm like, it's just every time I hear those kind of things, like, I do like a little, like, you know, when people tell me they don't know what Babylon 5 is or what Stargate is, or even Star Trek, like, you know, like the OGs or TNG and stuff like that, they're like, what's that? And it really just irks, it grinds my gears. So I'm like, you know, we got to do this with definitely a wider reach. I want everyone to know. But just as we went live, something else went live. Well, sort of. Someone else, I should say. President Biden is giving a speech right now as I started the show. So we're going to tune in for just a few minutes to see what President Biden has to say, because everyone's been kind of waiting to hear from this guy. Is that cool, Joe? Could we tune in for a minute? All right, here we go. Let's see how long the speech will go for, because Trump talked for like 2.5 hours on the RNC night. I'm giving this guy probably about 10 minutes. I mean, he's probably meted up a lot for the speech. I don't think he's going to go for 2.5 hours, but here we go. Let's see.
In this moment, we can see those we disagree with not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. Can we do that? Does character in public life still matter? I believe I know the answer to these questions because I know you, the American people. And I know this: we are a great nation because we are good people. When
Except
you
for Trump.
This office, I promise to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country, is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much. A cause of American democracy itself must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor.
Sharky's not a fan. He's already kind of tuned out.
My record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future.
What's happening?
All merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy.
Oh, God.
There we go. Yeah.
So I've decided the best way forward.
Say the line,
Joe. For a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices.
Younger voices that don't know what Stargate is.
For the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president.
Really? You're not going to step down?
Lower costs for hardworking families, grow our economy.
Unless they're MAGA.
I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose.
God, I'm so bored.
I'll keep calling out hate and extremism. Make it clear there is no place in America for political violence.
Oh, God.
Any violence ever, period.
Okay, he's talking about the attacks. That's okay.
Out to protect our kids from gun violence. Our planet from climate crisis is an existential threat.
Don't get me started on the climate crisis.
So my cancer
When
moon
you went
shot.
to the climate
So we
crisis.
can end cancer as we know it because we can do it.
Cancer as we know it.
I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy. Supreme Court reform. You know,
Kind of an oxymoron, I
keep
would think, but
working
okay.
to ensure America remains strong, secure, and the leader of the free world.
I don't
I'm
know.
the
He
first
looks like
president
he's
in this
there.
century to report to the American people.
He's
that
making the
United States
gaps
is
and
not
everything.
war
The AI would
anywhere
be
in the
really good.
world. We'll keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine,
Of course.
doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I'll make it more powerful and more united than any time in all of our history. I'll keep
That's
doing
why
the
he
same
went
for our
crazy.
allies in the Pacific. You know, when I came to office, the conventional wisdom was that China would inevitably surpass the United States.
This is live right now, John
That's not
Burns.
the case anymore.
First time Biden's been seen in
And I'm going
days.
to keep working to end the war in Gaza, bring home all the hostages, and bring peace and security to the Middle East and end this war.
All in what, like
I'm
3
also
months?
working around the clock to bring home Americans being unjustly detained all around the world. You know, we've come
Nothing
so
important,
far
retro gamer.
since my inauguration. On that day, I told you, as I stood in that winter, we stood in a winter of peril and a winter of possibilities. Peril and possibilities. We're in the grip of the we were in the grip of the worst pandemic in the century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression,
Oh no. I
the
shouldn't be
worst
laughing at
attack
this.
on our democracy since the Civil War. We came together as Americans. We got through it. We emerged stronger, more prosperous, and more secure. Today, we have the strongest economy in the world, creating nearly 16 million new jobs, a record.
Not true.
Wages are up.
I don't know if that's
Inflation
true.
continues to come down. The racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. We're literally rebuilding our entire nation, urban, suburban, rural, and tribal communities. Manufacturing has come back to America. We're leading the world again in chips and science and innovation. We finally beat Big Pharma after all these years to lower the cost of prescription drugs for seniors. And I'm going to keep fighting to make sure we lower the cost for everyone, not just seniors. More people have health care today in America than ever before. And I signed one of the most significant laws helping millions of veterans and their families who were exposed to toxic materials. You know, most significant climate law ever in the history of the world.
Climate?
The first major gun safety law in 30 years. Today, the violent crime rate is at a 50-year low.
That is not true. That is absolutely not true. I have to step in here and say that's a lie.
Are lower today than when the previous administration left office. I've kept my commitment to appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I also kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and be a president for all Americans.
What looks like America?
That's what I've done. I ran for president 4 years ago because I believed and still do that the soul of America was at stake. The very nature of who we are was at stake.
Really?
And that's still the case. America's an idea. An idea stronger than any army, bigger than any ocean, more powerful than any dictator or tyrant. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. That idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We've never fully lived up to it, to this sacred idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I do not believe the American people will walk away from it now. In just a few months, the American people will choose the course of America's future. I made my choice. I've made my views known. I'd like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country.
Oh boy.
Now the choice is up to you, the American people. When you make that choice, remember the words of Benjamin Franklin hanging on my wall here in the Oval Office. alongside the busts of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez. When Ben Franklin was asked, as he emerged from the
You can do it, Joe.
Teleprompter's a little fast.
the founders have given America a monarchy republic, Franklin's response was a republic, if you can keep it. A republic, if you can keep it. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands.
Oh boy.
My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am. That's what's so special about America.
Then why are you leaving, Joe?
We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers.
You could do 4 more years.
Ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things.
He seems fine.
I've given my heart and my soul to our nation,
Oh,
like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is
when
in
we
your
let 'em.
hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands.
ooh.
You just have to keep faith, keep the faith. And remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's simply nothing beyond our capacity.
It
we
feels
do it
really
together.
like ununited recently,
So
though.
let's act together.
Same.
Preserve our democracy. God bless you all.
That's it.
May God protect our troops.
No, that's
At least it was
it.
short. At least it was short. So
It was,
Thumbs up
what
for
was it, like 11 minutes, maybe?
Hmm.
10 minutes? 10 minutes. Trump went for 2.5 hours at the RNC.
that was a bit long.
Yeah, that speech went on and on. I was like, okay. So what were your thoughts, Joe? I mean, we did miss like the first maybe 30 seconds. I don't
I
think
know.
we said anything
Well,
too crazy,
first
but-
and foremost, he didn't pass away, which was the
Yeah.
rumor online, or one of the many rumors online. So he looked pretty good for a guy who had COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he seems fine. I'm sure
Seems it.
if it was his choice, he would have stuck it out. But I think Nancy Pelosi and the rest of her crew, it actually put the screws to him, and there was a force out. So now he plays ball, and we move on.
They were saying today, I was reading that they were saying the polls were polls were which were very heavy Democrat votes.
Yeah. Look,
Put
okay,
Kamala ahead of Trump. Do you think she has a chance, Joe, against Trump?
I personally do not. Although,
Stranger things
campaigns
have
can
happened.
surprise you. I mean, the thing with Trump is the people love him because he's volatile, and that's a very that's a double-edged
He's a
sword.
wild card.
But I mean, to be honest with you, she hasn't really been tested. I mean, she was tested in when she was running for president, and Tulsi Gabbard just ended her
Destroyed
career, ended her campaign, and kind of eviscerated her. And that was the only real challenge she faced. And I had the impression that really she was on the outs with Biden. And so she ended up, being shuttled off to deal with the border, issue as the border czar, though everybody called it, she was a border czar then, but now you can't call it border czar. She was something else.
They're denying, the media is denying that she was ever even in charge of it. And then so now there's been circulating videos of Biden saying,
well, I mean,
I'm putting you in charge of it.
I mean,
Kamala.
I have to tell you, I've kind of been red-pilled over the past, I think, 2 or 3 years. In the beginning, I would watch the CNN or the other shows and follow the big media newspapers, and it became apparent that we were being lied to, and it became very obvious that we were being lied to across like many subject matter, which I won't get into now. And then when it became evident that they were lying, no one ever basically said sorry. No one ever backtracked. And you kind of see it continuing today in the way the media backs really one party, which I find kind of galling, and which is why kind of I weigh in. Like 3 or 4 years ago, when I would comment and critique politics, people would say, "Oh, you're super left wing," but nowadays suddenly I'm very right wing, and the fact is I'm criticizing the same thing. It's just the people who are transgressing are from a different party.
Yes.
And so those are the appearances. But I mean, I get the critique from people who are just kind of adherents to one party, right? So basically their party can do no wrong. But just like recently, the whole kind of a joke about it is the border czar thing, where essentially people are pointing out, well, she was in charge of the border. She was a border czar. And then papers are going like Axia earlier today was like, no one ever said she was the border czar. Yeah. And then they pointed out, actually, here's an article where you state she was a border czar. And then they went back and amended the article to say it was a mistake for them to call her the border czar back in 2021. And then there was another, it's weird. It was like another, like, I'm not sure, it was like a site like a govtrack.com where they named Harris like the most liberal senator at the time, and people called that out. They basically were like, they're saying, oh, they called her like most liberal senator at the time, and now that site has basically deleted that ranking, so like it never existed. And we see stuff like that just you can't help but sort of react negatively, and so that's kind of what I've been going through.
It's very kind of like communist manifesto stuff too, like because like rewriting history so that you can present your kind of Marxist idea, which is what they've been accused of now, right? The Democratic Party has been accused of basically ushering in communism, which is really funny too, because Kamal, I actually learned this yesterday or the day before, because I pulled the ESL card. And I was like, because me, I'm Persian, so I moved from Iran when I was like 10 years old to Canada, and I was like, I don't understand what Kamala Harris means when she says unburdened by what has been, and a bunch of people pointed me to this James Lindsay thread that he had made about how this specific mantra is like this communist Marxist manifesto thing, where they just basically are trying to say, we're going to erase history and what you know of it so that we can create this new one in our own image. It's basically like a bunch of mantras and crazy. And that's why she keeps repeating it over and over.
I think the rewriting of history is something that has always happened across various political spectrums. And it's something and you can look back at events in history and you question the official version. But these past few years, more than any other time in my life, it's so obvious the way the stories are being manipulated and we're being lied to. And when the individuals who are lying are confronted, they either double down or ignore the accusations. And what's, again, galling is that they're very powerful people who are supporting them, one, because they are supported in return, and there are people who support, what they're doing and won't question the narrative.
And it's all like, and then it just ends up being like the little people always suffer, like we're always just kind of like taken in for a ride. It's almost like we have the illusion of power, but we don't. It's because everybody's like just at the top. It's a very Animal Farm situation going on. It's all very interesting. I am eating popcorn though, Joe, because you're not a dual citizen, are you? Like, you're Canadian.
I am not. I am Canadian. So I'm just kind of watching this from the sidelines.
Same.
In amazement.
Yeah, same here. Just like eating popcorn, trying to be trying to kind of disconnect, but at the same time I know like Canada is very closely involved in a lot of like American politics.
Yeah, the politicians here, Justin Trudeau, I think, is the worst prime minister this country's ever had. Just sort of arrogant, petty, just not very smart.
Terrible. Do you think
he's got nice hair? I think that's why he got elected. But I look forward to seeing him and his party get decimated in the next election.
Yeah, which is apparently next year, 2025. Do you think he's going to be done? Like, is he going? Are the Liberals done?
I think the Liberals are done. The problem is, though, in Canada, there are essentially 5 parties. So unlike the U.S., I mean, RFK is in there this year, and you have, the Greens. But in Canada, there's the Liberal Party and the Conservatives. And then you have right of the Conservatives. I know what they're called. Maxime Bernier's party.
Yeah, the Maxime Bernier party.
And then the left is the NDP. And there's also Quebec.
Is he the Quebecois?
The Bloc Québécois. So essentially 5 parties. And
you have Liberals and the NDPs on the West.
The Liberals essentially are being propped up by the NDP. And the leader of the NDP party, Singh, is just a toady, really.
Oh,
I mean, just the epitome of a toady who will criticize government policies, but he'll never do anything about it because
he's the worst. I dare say he's worse than Trudeau. I mean, I absolutely, that guy's just literally just says anything that would make him get attention, like good, bad, whatever.
It's
never
funny
do anything.
because I've never been a fan of the NDP, but I always kind of liked him. I thought he was kind of an interesting guy as a leader. But then after seeing how he's essentially just been Trudeau's lick spittle over the past a little while, I just, I have like no respect for that guy.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, especially after like the handling of COVID and everything that came after with the truckers and all of that stuff. I was like, man, these guys are just terrible. I mean, in every single way. I think that the Conservatives in Canada are coming back. I think the new guy seems to be putting their righting that ship a little bit.
I'm not a fan of politicians in general. I find them kind of duplicitous. But in this case, it's really the there has to be a change. He's been a terrible, terrible prime minister.
I remember because I was much younger when Trudeau first became prime minister, and it was one of the first instances that I was voting because I was a diehard Liberal back then, and I freaking couldn't stand Harper. Like I was like, Harper's got to go. Like it doesn't matter. At the time, the Liberals actually had good policies too. Like they were bringing policies that especially young people in Canada wanted to hear about. Legalizing weed was one of them. But just generally speaking, it was like after the whole Bush fiasco and everything like that, we all wanted Harper gone. But before that, like it was what is his name? The guy that passed away. I love that guy.
Brian Mulroney. Brian Mulroney?
No. Oh my God, the NDP leader.
Jack Layton.
Yes, Jack Layton. I was all in for Jack Layton. I was a huge supporter of Jack Layton, and then he passed away, and then the NDP just went it was.
I was the same way. I was always kind of a Liberal supporter for most of my life, but then when Trudeau was first campaigning, and there was something called the income splitting, where you could essentially split, your sort of income with your wife and your partner, and lower your tax rate. And Trudeau was being interviewed, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to scrap it when I'm elected." And someone pointed out that he was taking advantage of some other kind of like loophole, a tax loophole that allowed him to essentially, I don't know, run money through a trust. And they were like, "Well, you're doing this, and yet you're taking this away from other people." And he was like, "Oh, I'm just following the law." And I was like, "Well, wait a minute. This is still the law. I mean, income splitting is still the law. You're just going to go out and change it. You're going to change the law, but you're not going to change the law that works against you." And that's when I started to really question him and the Liberal Party in general.
Yeah, it's been one thing after another. He's had so many different kind of
scandals
scandals.
and
Yeah.
you know, we can investigate them because again, he's backed by Singh, and they will thwart any attempt to investigate, to seek any sort of answers. So I think it's going to be a while, and but when it does happen, hopefully it tarnishes his image forever.
Yeah, Mary, you know, when you're young, you gotta be, you gotta go through that liberal phase, and then you grow up, and then you're like, okay, I have things to conserve now. So, but moving on from the political talk, thank you for indulging me in that. Because I am interested. Like I said, I'm just eating popcorn and watching this. But we have so much more to talk about. So much more fun stuff like sci-fi and your career as a TV show creator. I have questions that I want to ask you about some of the stuff we're seeing recently. But first, let's get to some of these super chats that are coming in. John Burns, who is a huge fan of yours, Joe, he was so excited last week when I announced this show. He was like, what day is Joe coming on? And he's here.
Ron, I think I remember you from Orville Nation.
Yeah, he was in the chat then too. He's a huge Dark Matter fan.
Good to see you.
Yeah, and he says, and yay, Baron Destructo himself. And John also brought up last week, I think he like tweeted me and he was like, you know, there's a new Dark Matter show and it's sci-fi. And it's not our Dark Matter. And I was like, I don't know what show this is. And I went and looked it up. And I've been hearing really good things about it. But I'm like, I cannot bring myself to watch the show. Like,
yeah, I mean, I read the book. I read the book. It came out after my Dark Matter show. And it's a good book. I like actually Blake Crouch as a writer. You know, it's the same title. It's the same science fiction show. I just kind of wish they didn't use the same font. I found that kind of annoying.
I know. It looks exactly
but
the same.
Again, you know, I haven't watched it either. I haven't seen it.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm only tempted because people are saying it's really good. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll wait and see if there's an ending. Cause you know, Joe,
yeah,
sometimes the ending situation really hurts you. And I can't do that to myself anymore. John Burns for another 279 says Kamala is a VP shoved into this like the 1968 and forward. It's very interesting. It's very interesting all around. Magna Norse, thank you for the $10. Says Yuri Bazimov predicted everything. Kamala's a communist until it doesn't pay. She sold her snatch for cash. Wow, ouch. Which is not terrible, but not presidential either. LOL, LOL, LOL. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of rumors about her. Which are
you know, sort of like, you know, I think by sort of a lot of people going there, they kind of undermine their arguments, and people will be able to point and say, you know,
I agree.
And everything. I think if the Republicans are smart, they would just kind of avoid that because there's plenty of, you know, of other stuff, like real stuff that they can attack.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it always cheapens the argument when you go like for the like, you know, the low hanging fruit kind of thing. I mean, they did the same thing to Trump, like the whole, especially when like the first time he was running, like they just went with that whole grab him by the P word line, you know? And I was just like, I mean, do you have other arguments about why would be a bad president? Like, you know, there has to be other issues that you would think would be more.
So in all fairness, you did say it.
He did say it. He did. He absolutely said it. It was very. I mean, I kind of understand though. Like at the locker room talk, I'm like, I mean, boys are gross, Joe. You know that. You're a boy. You understand. Psychotic Mongoose gifted a membership to the chat, so thank you so much for that. And with that, we're gonna move on now to your show. Let's talk about your career, Joe.
Sure.
For people who may not know you, tell them what's up with you? Who are you? What did you create? Okay. What did you work on? All that good stuff.
I started my career in animation. My very first show was The Busy World of Richard Scarry, an animated series. Then I did. I developed a show called Caillou for television. And then I moved on.
You were part of Caillou? Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I ended up working on a show called Student Bodies, and that was my art.
I love Student Bodies.
To live action, yeah. And that was a blast. We shot in an abandoned high school, and it was amazing. And then we landed. We did. I say we because I was working with a writing partner back then, Paul Mully, and we did a bunch of action adventure shows. And then we almost ended up on Lex. Do you remember the show Lex?
No, which
it was
one's
like
Lex?
a German Canadian co-pro. It was a very weird show. The ship was great. It looked like a dragonfly. LEXX. I'm sure people in the fans of more obscure sci-fi will remember it. I remember watching the pilot and thinking, this doesn't make any sense. But we interviewed for that show. But we ended up actually getting a pitch on Stargate. And we pitched. They ended up buying one of our stories, and we ended up going to script, and we ended up joining the staff, and we joined in SG-1's 4th season, and we ended up staying for it was like 12 years and like 300 episodes. And then from there, I did my own show, Dark Matter, available now on CW Seed. And now just kind of in development. I'm going out with a bunch of projects. There are a couple of projects that are kind of close. There it is. Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I'd never even heard about this.
Yeah, it's kind of a good thing that we didn't get it, because if would have gotten Lex, we wouldn't have ended up on Stargate. And Stargate had more legs, shall we say, than Lex.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, well, tell me more about Stargate and your experience with Stargate.
I mean, it was kind of wild. When we joined in season 4, they told us we're probably going to do one more season. Usually shows go 5 seasons, and then we're out, get the syndication package. And then after the 5th season, they were like, Sci-Fi picked us up. We're going to do a 6th season, and then we're going to be done. And we're like, great, one more season. And then the season 6 drew to a close. They were like, well, the ratings are up. Sci-Fi wants us for another season, so we'll do one last season. And I was like, great. And then we ended up doing an 8th season, and then a 9th season, and then a 10th season. It was kind of funny because every year we would prepare the finale as if it would be a series finale, or that would be the end. And I always assumed that would be the end. And then we always kept on getting picked up until the 10th season, where I assumed we were going to get picked up. And that was the season we got canceled. I remember we got canceled at the 200th episode party. They announced it, and people were talking, so nobody heard. And I remember turning to my writing partner, and I was like, did they just cancel us? And he's like, I think we did. Yeah. So
that's devastating. At the party, that's terrible.
But it was kind of a good thing in that we had enough kind of runway, so we actually wrote the show as a series finale. Whereas Atlantis, we found out too late, and even though the final episode of season 5 actually works well as a series finale, it really wasn't planned as a series finale. And then Universe was another one. It went 2 seasons, and we heard that we were going to get a 3rd season to wrap it up. But that never materialized. And
none of these shows have endings, Joe. Why?
Well, I think the Stargates kind of do have satisfying endings in some way. SG-1, there was definitely a series finale written. In terms of Atlantis, the finale with them ending up on Earth, in the San Francisco Bay, is kind of an ending of sorts.
That's an ending, yeah.
The Universe ending is actually very bittersweet. Everybody gets into their stasis pods, and we don't know how long.
I still never seen it.
Yeah. Oh, you should.
I know.
It's only 2 seasons.
I'm planning on doing after Babylon 5. I think I'm going to move to Stargate. I've been doing like a old, rewatch of old sci-fi. I've only seen Stargate once, and I've only seen SG-1.
Okay.
And
Atlantis?
The movie, I've watched the movie obviously, but so I want to do a rewatch of SG-1 and then Atlantis and then Universe. I mean, whatever the order is, I think it's that's how it goes.
Yeah, it's
right?
SG-1, Atlantis, and Universe. Speaking of rewatches, I've been doing this classic Twilight Zone rewatch. I'm heading into season 2, so basically every day at around noon Eastern time, I will post a little trivia post about the episode and the actors and kind of behind the scenes. It's been kind of fun actually revisiting, because just watching the show, I remember loving it as a kid, but not really remembering much because I haven't seen it since I was a kid. And there were a lot of episodes that I missed. So, some of the twists I don't see coming. And then some of the twists, of course, working as someone in science fiction, you kind of do see coming. Yeah. And it's kind of been interesting to to kind of do that rewatch.
I want to do that too. Like Twilight Zone, especially classic one, is another one of those ones that I want to do a little rewatch on. Maybe even possibly after that, X-Files, at least like the original, a few seasons. The Twilight Zone. Which one is your favorite episode so far for Twilight Zone?
I put together a top 10. I think probably A Stop at Willoughby is one of the classic episodes about this guy who is living a very harried life, a difficult life, and he's on a train, and he always, the train always stops at this idyllic, beautiful town, and it's not on the map, and he just kind of starts dreaming about getting off one day and leaving his life behind and ending up in this idyllic town. And I don't want to ruin it for you, but there's a twist in classic Twilight Zone fashion. But that's an excellent episode.
Okay. Wait, tell me the name. I'm going to write it down because I'll just go and watch that episode.
Sure.
Which one is it?
It's called A Trip.
A Trip.
To Willoughby. WILLOUGHBY. And then I just watched. That was from season 1. Now I'm about halfway, not quite halfway through season 2, and we watched an amazing episode a couple of days ago called Eye of the Beholder, which scared the hell out of me. I remember when I was a kid, and it's about a woman who suffers some sort of like a facial deformity, and she's had surgeries and nothing has worked. And this woman, it's interesting because this woman gives her entire performance underneath these bandages, and she deals with the nurses and the doctors, and it's shot in a very interesting way, and the reveal is kind of a classic, again, Twilight Zone reveal that just stayed with me throughout.
I'm definitely going to check those two out. My favorite one, from what I'm like the ones that I can remember, is one of the classic ones as well, because it really got me. I remember when I was a kid, I was like, whoa. It's the To Serve Man. I think it was like the first episode.
No, that's I think season 3. We haven't hit it yet.
Is that season 3? Okay. Yeah, it's I love that episode, and I love the Shatner episode where he's like on the plane.
Yeah,
and like
20,000.
there's someone outside. That one's a really good one. It made me scared of planes for a long time. I was like, I don't want to go on the plane.
I still kind of am. Yeah.
I know, me too. It was It's a Cookbook. Yeah, that one. It's a good.
The Simpsons did a great parody of that episode.
Yes, The Simpsons did a great episode of that. Now let me get these couple of super chats that have come in. First of all, Low Watermark, thank you so much for the 10 gifted membership. That is so generous. Thank you very much for that. And then John Byrne says, I have a photo with George Takei. I'm holding up. We're pirates and smugglers and thieves. George has, oh my, hope I can get DM autographs. That'll be cool. You should try. Why not?
Yeah, the cast is very approachable.
Yeah.
Invite them to cons. They're good people.
Absolutely. And then Matthew Hammond for $4.99 says, Joe's recent X-Post writing script notes are amazing. Thank you for the laughs. I'm really glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that as well.
I feel like I'm doing some of my best writing on X.
It was so funny to read this thing. And I know I said we're not going to talk about politics anymore, but I have to bring this up because the super chat brought it up and I totally forgot. So basically what's going on is that Joe did a little bit of a script writing kind of correction because as a showrunner, you will often probably be presented with scripts that you have to correct or, you give notes, like you give your notes.
The past, was it 12 or 13 days have been the most surreal, 13 days in my entire life with the attempted assassination and then the fallout from the assassination and what we're learning about it. And it's just been so crazy. I was watching and kind of, tracking everything on X and I thought things are so crazy. It's like a movie script, but it's like a really bad movie script. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to kind of critique it as if it was an actual, well, not a movie script, but really more of a pilot for a TV show, like a thriller. And so I ended up taking the most ridiculous elements of these past couple of weeks and putting together a page of script notes and pointing out things that didn't make sense, things that make the Secret Service look really stupid. And I did one list, and then a week passed, and then more ridiculous information comes out, and then Biden ends up resigning or leaving the race, and I was like, oh well, I got to do like a second set of notes. So I did a second set of notes. And I was like, well, that's probably going to be it. But I was just checking out.
There's going to be more.
X, and it's like I feel like I'm gonna have to do like a set of notes every week between now and the election.
I absolutely think you should. I think you should keep this going and then have it like part 1, part 2. You could even probably make like a thing for yourself, like a thread, like a pinned thread tweet.
Yeah, I think maybe I might. It's interesting. It's like the first one got it was like 250,000 views, which is turned out to be probably my most popular tweet ever.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I think this is the first one. I think maybe this is the first one. Yeah, I don't know, but this is it's got 300,000 views, which is pretty good still.
Yeah.
But man, this was really funny. I'll just read a little bit of it. Joe writes, thanks for the script. Overall, the plotting feels contrived and at times defies logic. So we're going to require a fairly extensive rewrite for the second draft. I could just hear this as a producer's telling somebody this. And I got to tell you, man, it's because reality is really becoming truth is stranger than fiction now. So you're right. Watching this all go down has seemed like an absolutely garbage movie that you're watching. And you're like, what is going on? Who wrote this script? Especially when they brought in Iran, I was like, no way did they just bring that in. So he goes, the biggest issues with the script is that the characterization of the Secret Service who come across as inept that defies credulity, specifics to follow. Could we put the building that the shooter climbs onto outside proper security zone instead of current Pac-Man configuration that only excludes his position?
Yeah. So that is a reference to basically, it's kind of crazy, but the Secret Service have a perimeter that they watch, like a certain area. And if you look at kind of a bird's eye view, you can see that basically, rather than being kind of a circle that you would expect, it's like a Pac-Man configuration that basically leaves out a sliver, which is exactly where the building where the shooter ends up setting up. And it's crazy. And it's like, why did that happen?
Why?
And at first we were told because the roof is too slopey. They wouldn't want anybody getting hurt. And then I think the latest was they were going to go up, but it was too hot. I was expecting something they were expecting rain and they didn't bring their rain ponchos, so they didn't want to risk it. The roof was going to be very slippery. But also what was crazy was this guy was crawling across the roof, and I think 20 minutes to half an hour before he takes the shot, people were like, there's a guy on the roof.
Yeah.
And
there's videos of people being like, he's climbing up there with a gun.
Well, what I couldn't believe actually today is I think ABC was reporting on the fact that Trump said the Secret Service did not protect me. And he was like, that's very political. Why would he say that the Secret Service didn't protect him? Are you fucking kidding me? He was shot in the ear. Of course they did not protect him.
No, he got shot. That's the point, is that, he's not dead. So I guess they
did not protect him. Basically, it wasn't anything they did that resulted in him saving himself.
Yeah. He went down he went down himself, and then they were like, wait, what's happening? Let's pile on and make sure he doesn't get shot again.
Anyways, there's a lot of stuff that just frankly doesn't make sense, and doesn't make sense in a way that they look incredibly inept, to the point that, I mean, rightly so, people are questioning what the hell is going on, and they're not really offering anything in the way of plausible answers. And so it's very interesting to see how kind of this
you got to do a
out.
script thing of her questioning, because like, her questioning happened like yesterday. I don't know, it was Congress or whatever.
It was like 4 hours, and she was absolutely unable to shed any light whatsoever.
Any light. Like, it was so bad. I think you should definitely write about that. That's really funny. But you guys, if you want to check that out, which you should also just follow Joe, generally speaking, because when he's not writing these kind of scripts, which is amazing, he is talking about like Twilight Zone. He's talking about really cool sci-fi stuff. He's talking about food. If you're a foodie, he puts the weirdest shit you've ever seen on there. And he's like, would you like to taste this? And I'm always like, oh God, no, Joe. Like, why would anybody?
But you've
want
never
that?
tried it, right? Yeah, it's my daily yes, no. So I'll just kind of find the most interesting food item, and I'll just ask you yes, no.
Yeah, and I'm always, most of the time, I'm always like, no. But
You a
then
picky
once in
eater?
a while,
Are you a picky eater?
no, I'm not. I'm just one of those people who likes things separately. Like, for example, like, I'm not a fan of like chili chocolate or like
Yeah, I'm not a fan
mint
of chili
chocolate.
chocolate. I like chili and I like chocolate, but I'm not a fan.
I would just never like combine the two, I'm just one of those people that's very picky about what is being combined together. That's usually what I'm picky about, but I like food. Like, I'll eat the stuff. And like, I mean, mind you, if it's like super fattening, like, I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll have a taste, but I'm not gonna eat that whole thing. At least I hope, because I'll get that. That's more of a concern than anything else. But yeah, you guys go and check out Joe. He also has a website, which I have in the description, as well as his Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It's all on there.
X is really the place. If you reach out to me on X, I'm actually pretty good at getting back to people. I'd say on average, it takes me maybe anywhere an average 20 minutes to get back to someone who reaches out to me on X. On my blog, usually it may take maybe 6 to 8 hours, because I don't check my blog as much. I'm on Instagram. If you try to reach out to me on Instagram, maybe a couple of weeks.
On Insta.
What?
I didn't even know you were on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm in Instagram, but I really did it for my dog and my old dog, Suji. And then when she passed away, I just didn't have the heart to do any more Instagram. So her post was the last one. And I still go on, but really don't try and DM me on Instagram, because chances are I'm not even going to see it. And Facebook is the worst. The only reason I have Facebook, or I've kept Facebook, is to keep track of my elderly relatives, because that's all, they're the only ones who use it now.
Yeah, so that's the only reason.
If you try to reach me reach out to me on Facebook, it'll be like months, if ever, that I notice your message.
John Burns for $5 says, Joe, your notes reminds me of Gene Roddenberry's censored notes of Bible TV series. Your God creates humans, then blames them for their failings. I didn't know about this at all.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
That's very interesting. I want to.
Roddenberry is an interesting guy. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Okay, so now that we've established that you've been very much involved in TV show making and all that stuff, you're a very experienced person. Again, I highly recommend you guys watch Dark Matter, even though it didn't have an ending. It's still one of the very, very, very good sci-fi, which has strong female characters, but they're not Mary Sue's that, you're just like, oh, like what? Just putting women in for the sake of putting women in is not what Joe does. Like, there's always a purpose to everything. I like your characters. Your characters are very well developed. So I want to ask you some stuff about that kind of logic and thought process behind what's going on in this day and age, character creation, especially when it comes to series like, honestly, anything. Like if you watch Marvel nowadays, if you watch Star Wars, and even Star Trek, any of these shows, most of the times you're getting like overpowered women. That is really boring now. It's just a big yawn. And then when people don't respond to it, the creators usually go out and attack the fans and say, you guys are sexist for not liking it, which I find really and this is not good to do to insult your fans. So please,
yeah. So I'm going to weigh in on that, and I kind of weighed in on it, and on I think a podcast when I discussed I think Stone Loki's podcast when he was out of commission for a while, and Adega, our good friend Adega, took over hosting duties for him. Yes, and so I did a guest spot on that, and one of the worst takes I see on Twitter are professionals who say, don't criticize a movie or a TV show because no one set out to make a bad show. And while that may be well and true, they did make a bad show, and they got to make a bad show. And in getting to make that bad show, many other people who probably could have made a better show did not get the opportunity they did. More to the point, if you've invested your time and often your money in watching something, you as a consumer are well within your rights to criticize. If you go to a restaurant and the scampi are cold and the pasta is not cooked properly, you're within your rights to complain. And it's the same thing with TV shows, regardless of what what you're complaining about. Specifically, what you're talking about, Nina. It's funny. I came across a quote from Rod Serling, and unfortunately, I don't have it up here. But he was talking about writing an episode, and he wanted to kind of convey a kind of a sort of a moral lesson. And he's like, but you have to do it in a way that's subtle and entertaining. No one likes to be hit over the head with a message. And yet nowadays it feels as though everybody wants to make sure they hammer that message home. And so they just kind of really hit you over the head with it. And, a lot of the writers who do it, frankly, I don't think are very good writers. There's no subtlety to their writing. Executives who approve these scripts, who approve these type of shows, are kind of clueless and really just, looking to score, frankly, brownie points. There are ways to do it, to basically reflect society, and Dark Matter was a very diverse show. Our cast was very diverse. And I get sometimes magazines reaching out. They're like, "Oh, we're doing a diversity issue, and we'd like to speak to you about the diverseness, of your show." And I never wanted to do those interviews because, as kind of a white male showrunner, I always found it really grating to see other white male showrunners talk about how they were, doing a service to society by making those kind of shows. And like what you said about the characters are just characters. I think our female characters are just as interesting as our male characters in that they all have different strength, they all have different vulnerabilities, and they're also kind of funny in different ways. And all our cast was absolutely amazing. So I mean, I kind of always approach the characters as real people, and reflections of society. And our society is diverse, but tell the story through these characters rather than through lessons or hour-long PSAs.
Yeah, I mean, anytime, that's what most people really want, is we want good stories. And that's what we keep saying, like people who critique, especially like someone like myself who critiques a lot of this kind of like woke movies or whatever else. That's what we usually say, is we want good stories. If you have diversity in it, great, as long as it's got a good story. Like nobody cared. And back in the day, people didn't care either. Like that's why we keep talking about how Star Trek, the original, was very diverse. TNG was very diverse. DS9, very diverse. All of these shows were very diverse before being diverse was a requirement. and I guess that's my next question to you is, do you feel as a creator, kind of like having your kind of hands tied behind your back with this DEI nonsense and these checklists that they're kind of giving you, like you have to have this many females and you have to have this many insert race here or whatever else. Have you come across that at all?
Look, I mean, as I said, sort of my, I always seek to reflect society, and the society around me is very diverse. So that's what you see, and on the shows I've done, on the shows that I've taken out. So, it's not, or it hasn't really been something I've run up against. Although, I mean, we'll see when I get my next show off the ground. But personally, I haven't run up against it.
What's going on with your current projects? Do you have anything?
Balls in the air. I've got an action adventure series that we've attached a star and a director, and things are looking very promising.
Okay.
There's another one that we were supposed to shoot in Portugal this summer, and then, as often happens, things fall through. So we're starting over on that one. There's a couple of sci-fi pilots that I'm taking out with actually one of the bigger studios. And that one, actually, we got a Zoom call about. There's another project that I'm about to sign a deal with that I would only be kind of consulting on. I've got a horror movie out that's kind of making the rounds, looking for financing. So, I mean, and I'm sure there were other, I mean, to be honest with you, in this business, it's just so feast and famine. So you're always juggling projects and you never know what's going to land. So I've got, I think, 6 to 8 different pilots out there. I got a comedy, a cozy mystery. I've been watching a lot of crime shows lately. I'm up to about 350 crime shows from all over the world.
Wow.
And yeah.
I just finished a really good book, an Anthony Horowitz book. And they did a TV show with it too. Now they're doing season 2. Magpie, yeah. It was really good. I really liked it, and I just read like the sequel, and that was really good too. Have you read it? Have you read the sequel?
I did not read the book. I saw the series, which I quite liked.
I don't know how they're gonna do the sequel because it's a little bit different than the first one. So I'll be interested to see. They're making it right now, so that'll be fun. So I guess my next question for you is, because you've had, I mean, you're talking about how you're sending in your kind of like, you're trying to get all these projects off the ground. You have been a producer in Stargate. By the way, are any of these projects that you're doing Stargate Revival, or? Sadly,
I am out of the loop on Stargate.
Okay.
So
no. Okay. None of those. Well, I've heard some rumors about Stargate Revival, which brings concerns.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, basically, I've heard rumors, and
it's always bringing concerns, though, for me, because I'm always like, oh, people who have to, like, if you're gonna reboot something, please let like OG people be involved, or people from back in the day, so you're not ruining, a property.
Yeah, the best case scenario would be to have someone who was involved in the initial shows, SG-1, Atlantis, Universe, or a combination thereof, be involved in this one.
Competent people.
Yeah, the second best thing is not to do a reboot, but to do something that is in universe, that combines the best of both worlds. Is really, first and foremost, a new show to bring in new audiences, but at the same time rewards longtime fans of the show. So
I agree with that.
If
definitely,
if
newer Amazon, shows is much better.
Yeah. So that would be the smart thing to do, and hopefully they, that's what they do. But
I hope so. Well, I hope that you get a letter, though. So we've made a deal, and
a letter. I'll head down to the post office.
Exactly. Like
you got a telegram,
Joe. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, a telegram, that would be better. You'll be like, wait, am I in the Twilight Zone?
If I'm plugged my fax machine, I'm going to plug it back in again, and just in case.
That would be amazing. But so, like, following that thought, you've created shows. You've been a producer, so you've been involved with the money aspect of shows and the funding and how much funding you need to make a show. So can you explain to me why some of these shows nowadays are so freaking expensive? Like, I was reading this article It said Apple TV will Plus will reduce spending as Severance season 2 reportedly cost $20 million an episode. Have you seen Severance, like the first season?
I have not.
It's really good, Joe. I highly recommend it. You should definitely try it out. But in season 1, they were basically just pretty much in one big set, like one office set. And that was pretty much it. Like, once in a while the guy would go home and you'll see him in his car crying or something like that. But other than that, like, it was pretty much in one place. Except for like the final episode, which I'm not gonna get into. But assuming that this is gonna be like season 2, maybe they're gonna be outside the office a little bit more, which I don't see how going with the story. But how 20 million an episode, Joe? How?
Yeah, a lot of that is talent, meaning the actors. Now, I think back to a show like House, and Hugh Laurie was getting like a big, chunk of that budget. So that is a big part of it. I look back at shows like Game of Thrones, which is kind of interesting, where the actor fees were relatively low, but I mean, it was such the spectacle of the show. They were at, I think, like $10 to $12 million an episode, I said, on average, and that was a lot back then. But now budgets have ballooned, because of inflation, and there's a race to sort of for streamers to outdo each other, and so they'll just throw money at productions. And frankly, and I'm going to burst a lot of bubbles, but a lot of the time, executives who kind of greenlight shows and oversee shows don't realize where the money is going. If it was like a good showrunner, they would make sure that the money ends up on screen. They would run an efficient production. A lot of the times they will put someone in charge who's like never run a show, or who will just make these like ridiculous demands and slow the show down. And so much money is wasted in production, in television production, if you got like the wrong person in charge. And I've seen it happen more often than not.
So
I mean, that doesn't $20 million. It surprises me that much money is being spent on an episode. Do I expect to see $20 million worth of production value on any show that spends $20 million an episode? No, I don't.
Like, I mean, Godzilla -1 was $15 million for like a 2-hour movie. Like, mind you, this is probably a 10 episode thing. I'm guessing 10 episodes, about a half an hour, 40 minutes each.
I've never watched the show, so I don't know what the cast is. I don't know who the creators are.
I'll tell you right now.
I don't know what the directors they use. So that will have a lot to do with it.
The creator is Ben Stiller.
Okay.
Hold on. The guy, I forget. I always forget his name. The main guy is from Parks and Rec. The guy that married the chick. What's his name? Let me pick it up. Severance. If I can spell, that would be great. I'll bring up the IMDb. Adam Scott. Adam Scott is the main actor, and then Britt Lauer is like the secondary, like supporting actress. They got Ditchin. I forget. I don't know how to say her name. This chick, I think she's from the 100. She's in there.
I don't know. Then in that case, maybe their rap parties are like fucking spectacular. I don't know, guys. We're going to Dubai. Everybody, the cast, crew, the families. I don't know.
Yeah, and Christopher Walken like guest starred for like a couple of episodes.
I don't know.
But he's definitely like not full-time cast, at least not in season 1. Maybe that'll change in season 2. But again, they didn't have like a star-studded cast. Like, I wouldn't say this was a star-studded thing. And Ben Stiller is probably the most famous person in that entire cast, and he's the show's creator. It is very good. I highly recommend you watch it, Joe. I think like as a sci-fi fan, I think you'll enjoy it because
what I've heard about it, to be honest with you, has, by the way, thank you to my director of photography, my wife, who just turned on the lights. I kind of resisted watching it because I pitched something very similar.
Oh.
And so I don't really know what Severance is, but essentially my pitch for a site where I was developing was about a future where they are able, it's called partition, where you're able to essentially separate your work life and your private life. So by something called a partition, and so you kind of don't, I forget what the exact pitch was, but you don't remember your day life, and you're kind of living two separate kind of lives. Now I don't remember the pitch.
That's essentially what this show is as well.
Anyways, yeah.
But the performances are really, really strong, especially the main guy, like this guy here. Especially if you know him as Adam Scott, especially if you know him from like Parks and Rec, and you're like, this guy's a comedian. Like, how can he? He gives some powerful performances, but it's essentially like pretty much exactly what you're saying was your pitch as well. It's weird too, because I mean, once you start watching it, it does have like a very Twilight Zone feel to it, because you're like, what's reality, what's not. Like,
it looks interesting. It's just that
ethical.
Sometimes when I get on like a binge, that's what I do. So basically I was watching crime shows and people were like, you should watch this, you should watch that. And I'm like, if it's not a crime show, I'm not watching it. So I went through 300 crime shows. Before that, it was like 300 horror movies. And now I'm just kind of catching up because I'm doing Cookie Monster. My good friend Cookie Monster is doing movie reviews, back to doing movie reviews now. And so I'm watching these movies with him. And we're watching kind of the new releases. And we watched Civil War the other day. That was kind of the more recent one.
Like Civil War, the movie, not the Marvel one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, the modern one, the one that came out earlier this year. Yeah. And
how did you like it?
I did not like it at all. It was
I haven't seen it.
I was watching it and I was like, I was astounded because when I will be able to see a movie, and even if it's a predictable movie, something will happen and that may take me by surprise. But everything that happened in that movie, I predicted from every character death, every kind of like moment. It was just astounding. I was like, I feel like I'm I'm like
that happened to me. That happened to me the other day when I was watching Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley.
That's the one I actually watched today. Yeah.
Did you like it?
I can't say I did.
I
can see how many people who liked the original, and I never watched all the sequels in between, but it was just like, oh, okay, here we go. Now it's going to be like now it's going to be another chase, and now we're going to be another chase, and just the ending didn't really make sense. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it just did not make sense.
It was awful. And then I remember I was like literally saying, I bet you this is going to happen to my husband. And then literally like the next scene it would happen. And he'd be like, you watched this movie, haven't you? And I'm like, no, it's so predictable. You can tell what they're going to do.
When they introduced the fact that she has a daughter, I'm like, oh my God, please don't make her a cop. At least she wasn't a cop. She's a lawyer. Right. And then ends up getting involved in directly involved in the case.
Yeah. What's funny though is I actually watched Bad Boys for Life last night, and I really enjoyed that. I went in expecting zero. Like I was like, this is gonna be shit. Like I expect, especially after that Axel Foley disaster, I went in thinking this is gonna be terrible, and Will Smith.
I'm gonna put that on the list. Oh, you know what? I should mention it because I invited you. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to do kind of something called a redemption rewatch, where we pick a movie that one of us may not have liked, or maybe was planned for whatever reason, and revisit it and watch it with fresh eyes and decide whether the critique it received was deserved or not. And the movie I want to do it with is a movie that essentially ruined my love for Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. So I'm going to get Tom Luongo, who's a friend of mine who we follow each other on Twitter. He's kindly offered to take part, and you, since you're a Star Wars gal. And at some point, I don't know what venue I want to do it. I don't know if I did Spaces, which was fine. I kind of like this format, but I don't have like a YouTube channel. But in any case, what I would like to do is, it'll be me and my two guests, and we have our movie, and then we introduce why we had an issue with the movie, and then we discuss, and we can.
I love this idea. I think you should definitely do it. And I can't believe that you say that about Star Wars. I can't believe that's the movie that killed your love for Star Wars.
But it's crazy is because growing up, I remember watching the first Star Wars in 1977 and going to see it 11 times and loving it so much. And it was such a monumental, film from such a seminal movie. And then I remember Empire Strikes Back came out, and I was kind of like, the sequel is going to be as good. And it was even better. It was like darker. And I was like, it's like one step beyond. And I was like, this is insane. And then Return of the Jedi was coming out, and I was like, oh my God, Boba Fett. It just looks amazing. And I was sitting through it, and then halfway through, the Ewoks come out, and I was like, "What is going on?" And I felt betrayed. I felt betrayed. And George Lucas, I remember people were like critical of George Lucas, and Lucas was like, "Oh no, Star Wars was always like a kids, a movie for kids." And I was like, "No, Empire Strikes Back was
dark.
An adult, sci-fi."
Mind you, kids back in the day were a lot harder. So maybe he meant like it was for kids. I mean, kids in the 80s and the 70s.
No, those Ewoks were definitely for kids. It was just, I keep on harping on this, but I want to say like I never watched anything Star Wars since, which isn't exactly true. I ended up going to see Attack of the Clones, but only because I was tricked into going to see it because Robert Cooper, who was an executive producer on Stargate, is a big Star Wars fan. And he was like, let's go see a movie. And I always liken it to kind of those videos of the dogs that they think they're going to the dog park, and then they roll into the vet. They're like, "Ooh." That was me. And I was like, "What? Attack of the Clones?" And he's like, let's go see it." And I thought it was fucking dumb.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. So you were one of the prequel haters too? My God, Joe, yes. I can't with you.
Uniformly hated.
I'm broken right now.
That scene where basically, I don't know, like they're like, there used to be a planet here, but there's no planet anymore. And yet sort of there's a gravitational distortion, but we don't really know what's going on. And I'm like, really? You don't know? You can't guess? Oh my God.
I mean,
losing my headphones and my mind.
The funny part is that it's gotten so much worse, Joe, under Disney that I bowed out after The Last Jedi. Like I was like, in the first one, I was like, I'm willing to give it a chance. I watched Rogue One, which was really weird because it started out like not even having the Star Wars theme. And I was like, this isn't really a good sign for a Star Wars franchise movie. And then I went and watched the first one. I had a lot of potential. I was like, I'm going to hang on to hope that the second one's going to be good. And then The Last Jedi completely destroyed me. That was my moment. Because there was a scene in that show, in that movie, where Force Ghost Yoda brings down.
Sorry, what?
Force Ghost Yoda.
Force Ghost Yoda. Okay,
that's right.
I'm on board. Yes.
Brings down Force Lightning, which if you've seen the final movie, Force Lightning is usually a Sith power, because the Emperor uses weird Force lightning. Yeah. So he uses Force lightning to destroy the Jedi temple and burn all the books. So essentially, like, forget the past. It was really weird. It was a really weird scene. I was like, okay, I'm done. Like that scene broke me. I was like, Yoda would never do this. The Yoda I know would never do this. So it was just, it broke me. And I was like, I'm never going back. Like, this is over for me. So for me, Star Wars ended with basically the last one and the prequels, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Star Wars ended
much earlier for me. And then the Marvel movies, I haven't watched any of the Marvel shows. I just can't bring myself to do it. I've decided that, and being a huge Marvel fan, I mean, I read the comic books when I was a kid, and I liked some of the movies. But I love the Deadpool movies because the Deadpool movies are a really accurate reflection of the tone and the character from the comic books. Whereas every other superhero movie really feels like it's kind of its own thing. Kind of in the end, even though it's like visually spectacular, it feels like an emptier version of the comic book characters and the stories that I used to read
Yeah,
growing up.
it's like a hollow shell
Mhm.
of those kind of stories. I've been hearing good things about Deadpool versus Wolverine,
Yep.
the new one that's
I'm sure
out.
it'll be
So
great.
I'm excited to see that. But
Yeah.
I haven't been excited to see a Disney Marvel movie for a long time either because they've just been really, really bad. Joe, I
Mhm.
would not recommend you watching any of the MCU ones. Once in a while, like I could tell you, like, hey, you know what? This one's an outlier. Like you should try
Mhm.
this out. There's no outliers in this
Right.
situation, man. Like it's just
Right.
bad. Like it's all around terrible. And I tried. I started WandaVision, and that one was promising because it was different. Like it had that,
Mhm.
Twilight Zone feel. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this
Yeah.
is starting out really good. And then it ended really terribly. It just went to shit. And then after that, it's just been
Mhm.
a solid like downward spiral. I don't think I've maybe the chat can remind me of one if I've forgotten, but I don't remember a single one that had a redeeming quality. And so I think the only single movie I've enjoyed with Marvel recently is their last Spider-Man movie that they made. I think No Way Home. Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That one was probably the last one that I really liked.
Mhm.
And I think I'm probably going to enjoy Deadpool versus Wolverine because I've been hearing good things about it.
Mhm.
And I mean, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine one last
Mhm.
time. That's gonna pull on those heartstrings. I mean, I
Right.
already got emotional
I like
watching the
Logan was
trailer.
great. I like Logan a lot.
Same.
Yeah.
I was like crying when he like in that last scene, and then
Mhm.
they were like they were showing the scenes of that in the trailer in the first and in this one. And I was like, I'm already getting emotional, and it's just the trailer. That's a good sign. By the way, is it just me, Joe, or do trailers suck nowadays? Like
I think
really
trailers have
long,
kind of always sucked. Like half the time they give everything away, which is so
everything.
annoying.
Did you see the new Gladiator 2 trailer or
I
the
haven't
new
seen it.
Gladiator trailer? God, that is probably one of the worst trailers I've
Really?
ever seen in my life, Joe. Like I was like, this is terrible. First of all, way too long. Like way too long.
Hmm.
Second of all, they have rap music in there. Like
Yeah, I'm not
I'm
a big
like,
fan of that. I'm not
why?
a
Like
big fan of modern music and
I'm not either.
period.
Like, and I'm trying not to show my age here because I do like I like some modern music. I
Mhm.
mean, but Gladiator, like,
I do like modern music. I just don't find it
it's not
it
great.
fits the
Let's not
you know.
pussyfoot around, Joe. It's terrible. Modern music is terrible. It's fucking terrible. But like for Gladiator, like especially with the first one, because you had like Hans Zimmer, you had
Mhm.
like the score was amazing. Like you're like you're just swept into this movie,
Mhm.
and then in this like the trailer, they're putting like rap. It didn't fit. It was ill fitting. I don't know if I think Ridley Scott's lost his edge, to be completely honest with you. Did you check out his new sci-fi, which got canceled?
Which one?
Um, Raised by Wolves.
No. Some people liked it.
I liked it a
Some people
lot.
liked it. Yeah.
I
I
liked
did not see it.
especially the first season. I liked a lot. The second
Mhm.
season left much to be desired for.
Yeah.
And then they got canceled,
Hmm.
and they only needed one more season to close out the story, so that hurt because I was
Yeah.
like, I mean, it still had potential. Like he could have picked it up in the third season,
Mhm.
but then again, that show they were spending so much money that they were like, nope, like it's out, and that's why I'm concerned about Severance because like now they're saying, hey, you guys got to tone it down if you want us to give you like the rest of the season. So I think this one is pitched as 3 season or possibly 5 seasons. I'm not
Hmm.
sure, but I remember it was pitched as longer than 2 seasons. So now Apple Plus is telling them, hey, you guys got to slow down your spending because we gave you way too much money. You spent way too much, and now that makes it like if it doesn't get watched enough, like are they going to have a third season?
Mhm.
That stuff worries me. I hate
$20
that
million
stuff.
is a lot of money to spend per
Way
episode
too much per episode. I can't. 10
for a
episodes,
show
20
that's not
million
like
each.
a far future science fiction series
And I
or
mean,
a
like,
fantasy series.
you mentioned like Game of Thrones, bro. We don't have any dragons in Severance. like it's like where is this money going? Have you watched House of Dragons season 2 yet?
No, that season finale of Game of Thrones was kind of the Return of the Jedi for me. I'm out. I'm done.
I know. I was too.
Well, I mean, I really love Game of Thrones and love what they were doing with it. And then when they went off book, I still think there was, there was promise, but they started doing like the writing just got a lot worse. There were like coincidences, like characters kind of meeting up and like kind of the most random of places, and
the travel
ending was such a disappointment. Like these characters, like Littlefinger, who was brilliant, gets so he becomes a complete idiot at the end, so that they can have the satisfying conclusion of him getting offed, and just that the finale was I don't know, terrible. Like just so bizarre that
I cried.
That Jon Snow kills her, the dragon flies off with her. It's like there's no body. How do you know she's dead? And yet, what are her people called? The
Dothraki.
Yeah, the Dothraki, who are basically being shown to be like ruthless, suddenly have like a respect for due process and just kind of imprison Jon Snow, and then they're like, okay, well you know.
Well, they had all died too in the previous battle, and then I was like, how they all of a sudden they showed up? Because remember when they said
yes they go out, and that was kind of a cool scene, and all their lights are snuffed. Not a satisfying end to the Night King.
No, not at all.
Everything just felt kind of rushed, and that they just kind of mailed it in, and that was kind of a disappointing. That one kind of
I cried at the end of that episode. I think it was episode 7 though, not quite the end. It was like the bells. I was like, when she actually went mad and started burning everything down, I was like, that's not my Daenerys. Like if you wanted to turn her dark, you should have like covered like a season. Like you didn't.
Yes.
Like you have to prep this Mad Queen situation. Like. And they just went like, oh, well, like she's just gonna flip a switch.
Yeah, it's like we got 3 episodes to wrap this up. Let's get moving. That's how I felt.
It was bad. And so that's actually what started my YouTube career, Joe. Is I went on a channel. I was crying. I was devastated.
Was it anger?
Yeah, it was.
Because
it was
anger motivates.
Anger and sadness, like extreme sadness, kind of like grief. I went to, my husband was like, there's this guy, he's like streaming this episode, like, because I was at the end of the season 8. He's like, he's streaming the episode. There's a lot of people in the chat. I was like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? I clicked it on it. It was Gary from Nerdrotics chat. There was like 20,000 people in the chat talking about how shitty this episode was. And I was like, I'm not alone. And then I realized from then on, like, I was like, oh, other people hated Star Wars The Last Jedi too. Like, I'm not alone. And so that's how I made my YouTube channel. I was like, oh, I can hang out with these guys and talk about how these movies have all turned into shit. That's great.
A very bad fan. You have to like everything.
Yeah, I know. I try. Man, I was so excited about the new Star Trek. Like, I was like, I'm in. Like, Star Trek Discovery, let's go. Bro, I watched this whole thing. I watched it to the end, and I was like, are you being serious right now? Like, this is Star Trek now? Like, I was so devastated after that started. And I gave it a chance. I was like, I'm definitely watching it. And I heard terrible things about it. I still watched it. And then I was like, I'm out. I'm out on Star Trek. I was out. I did watch Picard season 3 because everybody told me, like, you have to watch it. He did the best he could. I think he saved what was left of Star Trek. Not that it'll ever happen again. Yeah, that guy, Terry Metalis, I think that's what his name is. I really like him. He did a really good job with what he had to work with, which wasn't much. And he kind of did. He gave the OG fans what we wanted, which was the the OG cast. He gave us our member berries. But with the Game of Thrones, I was with you. I didn't want to watch the new season. I happened to watch it because it's kind of like my job. I had to tell people what's going on. And I tried it, and it was so good. And the only reason that I even became a little bit interested was because the first season ran in parallel with Amazon's Ring of Power. And that show was a goddamn disaster. So I was like,
are they still producing that one?
Oh yeah. I think that one's starting soon. I want to say, chat, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't been keeping track, because I'm not planning on watching that guy. Like, there's no way I'm watching the second season of this. I don't hate myself enough, chat. I'm sorry. But so when they were running, like, side by side, you just had, like, I mean, it was so weird to see how well one fantasy series was, and you're like, wow, this is pretty freaking good. And then the other one being so terrible, and I can't believe that one's actually based on source material like Tolkien's like Lord of the Rings, and it's just it's atrocious. Have you tried any of it? Did you watch?
No, I heard not great things. I mean, I like the movies.
The movies are great.
I just saw a scene. I think I saw one scene where I think she's being led to a jail cell, and then she does some like weird move and throws the guard in the jail cell, and I was like, "What?" It looks like something out of like a '90s. Just the direction, the way the stunt plays out, and I just thought, if this is kind of a reflection of the show, it's just kind of not for me.
It's definitely exactly that. It's kind of like this. It feels like Lex. Like when you're watching it, you're like, am I watching Lex, like this like old 90s, really cheap, like CW style thing? And then you find out they're spending like a fuck ton of money. Like Amazon is like giving them
that's another thing.
Insane budget, and I don't know what they're doing with it. I have no idea what's happening to that budget.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's get to some of these super chats. Matthew Hammond for $4.99 says, your script notes remind me of SG-1's episode Citizen Joe, where Dan Castellaneta of The Simpsons character tells stories of SG missions.
Yeah, we did quite a bit of that on Stargate. It's kind of be poked fun at ourselves. And this was like an episode of a guy who essentially was mentally linked to one of our characters. And so he thought he was dreaming all their missions, and so we were able to call back a lot of like lost episodes, and it was a lot of fun. He's the voice of Homer Simpson on The Simpsons, and
cool.
He ended up guesting on our show, and then he ended up writing an episode of The Simpsons and wrote Stargate into the episode, and he kind of hit it off with Richard Dean Anderson, who's a big Simpsons fan, and then Rick ended up guesting on his show. That was kind of fun.
Oh my God. I'm probably one of the biggest Simpsons, OG Simpsons, I should say. Fans that you'll ever meet in your life. Homer Simpson taught me how to speak English.
Really?
I mimicked his accent when I was learning how to speak English. I was like, I'm not having that. The Persian accent is not happening. Okay. I was like, there is no way that is going to be my accent. So I would copy this actor. And how he spoke.
Amazing.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
He taught me how to speak. John Burns, thank you for the $5, says Zoe has an amazing sense of humor. Her telling Tabor, how easy it will be to harm him, and described whose injuries to Wexler through his testicles.
It happens.
Yeah. Really good.
Zoe Palmer is a fantastic actress, and playing the android was a very tough, a very demanding role, but she kind of delivered a really endearing performance. And we used to get these network, what do you call them, kind of audience surveys at the end of every season, and she was always like the audience favorite.
Oh yeah, what's funny is like I remember when I was watching your show, like I thought that she was one of the best in it as well. Like, I mean, obviously I love too, but I was like, and what was her name? The one with blue hair, 5. She's great too, but the android specifically, I think it was the writing, Joe, because you had such a really good, like the banter of like, it's weird because I mean, other than Data, like I can't describe this, but other than Data, we've never really had another kind of like android-esque show that we can like fall in love with. And I was like, oh man, the banter with this android and it's like, trying to figure things out in the human way and like, all that stuff. I love the banter. It was really cool.
Interesting because I would hear from autistic people who really connected with the android character, which I thought was very kind of interesting.
That's cool. Yeah. They're awesome like that. Matthew Hammond, thank you for the $4.99, says, did you watch Awake with Jason Isaacs? It was great. He alternates between reality where his wife is dead and son is dead by falling asleep. Whoa, no, that sounds cool.
That is Alexa reminding me to update my blog. I have not watched Awake. I'm aware of it, but I have not watched it.
Is that like a TV series?
I think so. I think it was on NBC way back in the day.
Because there's a movie called Awake.
Yes. Yeah, that was, I think, De Niro.
Netflix.
I think so, yeah. Or no, Awakenings? Or maybe there's another movie called Awake. I don't know. I'm trying to find this one. Well,
with Jason Isaacs, it says. Okay, let me look that up. With Jason Isaacs. Oh, that creepy guy, Jason Isaacs. I'm so bad with names. Jason Isaacs is the creepy guy from the OA, which, by the way, was another show that never got an ending. I love that. I love that show. Awake TV series doesn't have an ending.
Probably
Matthew
not.
Hammond.
As a network show, I would say no.
No, it's I don't know. It says it's a 2021 or 2012 drama, so it's old. It's an old one. Ooh, maybe I'll check it out. If it has an ending, I'll check it out. Matthew, let me know. Let me know. You don't have to super chat. Just be like, yes, it has an ending. John Burns for $5 says, watch Lindsay Ellis's video. We need to talk about Game of Thrones, I guess. She's an amazing researcher. Okay, I'll check that out. And then John Burns again with another toonie says, Space Ice did a video about the Acolyte. So funny. Man, I have not watched a single episode of that. I haven't watched a single Disney Star Wars thing since The Last Jedi, and I won't do that to myself. I just can't. But thank you. I might check out that video though, because making fun of the Acolyte sounds like fun. Raider just came by and dropped a $52.73 super chat.
Amazing.
Didn't even say anything. Thank you, Raider. If you have any questions or anything you want to ask Joe. Raider, are you a fan of Stargate? I mean, this is crazy. You can ask anything you want. He's here now. But man, thank you. That is so generous. I appreciate you. Let's see. Okay, one more thing we got to talk about. Joe, what is going on in Canada with the fashion sense? Because, bro, what is this? This is supposed to be Team Canada's gear for 2024. My God, this is the ugliest thing I have ever seen, especially for the men. What's happening over there, Joe?
Kind of in much the same way that some suspect people with connections to Trudeau and the Liberals got these sweetheart deals to during COVID. I suspect that this must be like a friend or family member who designed these. They're just awful.
It has to be. This has to be nepotism, because what is happening in Canada? Because this wasn't the only logo or terrible. I mean, this one isn't as bad because at least it's like red, so you can. It's kind of like blended in.
Yeah, it hides a lot.
It hides a lot, so you're like, okay, whatever. But this looks like some pajamas you can buy at freaking Walmart. Like, this is supposed to be Lululemon. Like, you're supposed to have cute stuff. This is terrible. Remember,
apparently they did not consult with me. I assume they would.
They should.
We could have like readily rectified it, but they did not. So, and this is the result.
Do you remember in 2010 when the Olympics came to Vancouver?
I do. I was in.
They had the cutest stuff back then. Like I still have my Vancouver like hoodie from the 2010 Olympics. They needed this whole thing needs to be reworked. Joe, can you please get a note?
Yeah, I can. I'll put in a call and I'll let you know how it goes.
Please, I'm begging you. But like I said, this isn't even the first snafu we've had. Because what is this? This is the new logo for the Canadian Army.
Oh yeah, that's another one. It looked like like a beaver taking a dump. That's what it looks like to me.
Is that not what it is?
I don't know what it is.
What is it? What is it supposed to be?
It's supposed to be like some sort of like camo
pixelated
thing, like a digital. It does feel pixelated, kind of racy, or I don't know what's going on.
It looked like, to me, it looked like a pixelated deer taking a poop as well. I mean, you said beaver. I thought it was a deer taking a poop. Personally,
okay, I can see that. Yeah, maybe that's what they were going for. I don't know. That would be very Canadian.
But I mean, why?
It feels like people just are not trying anymore. It's like, you know what? We're just going to do it. You're going to pay us that money, then once you have this, here you go.
That's what it feels like, Joe, because I mean, this is what it feels like even with entertainment nowadays. Like, it just feels like people have just given up. They're like, you know what? Like, it's kind of like the producers. Like, you know how
but at least they were trying to do something intentionally bad, right? In this case, it really feels like, like you said, it's like the government or the studios have like a shit ton of money, and they're like, here, you go do something. And then we're like, well, what are we going to do with all this money? And I was like, I don't know, just like a pixelated beaver taking a shit. Okay, how's this? Okay, send in that. That's fine. Let's go spend this money.
Did this not go through a committee where they would vote on like some? I would really like to see the runner up. Like, I mean, what is going on? Like, they don't have other options. Like, this can't have been the only option.
This was the good one, I bet. Can you imagine what the other ones were?
The other end.
How offensive?
I would really like to know. Yeah. I honestly would. I would really like to know what the other options were, because I remember, like, when we were in school, we had contest for whoever draws the best picture gets it on their yearbook, like the yearbook photo or whatever, or like the cover of the yearbook. We had an art competition for the whole school participated in it, and then some guy won, and I was like, I participated in that, and I think mine was like 4th or 5th. I was kind of proud because it was like the whole school, but like that guy's work was really well done. This is what the fuck? Like, what? Like, this?
It's just so weird, and it looks like he's got like a little hockey stick at the front. Like, maybe he's like, I guess, I don't know.
I mean, I can follow.
It feels like one of those works of art where basically they present it, and no one says anything, and someone's like, I don't get it. And then the author's like, the artist is like, what do you mean you don't get it? You don't get it? And no, we get it. We get it.
Yeah. I mean, I just really would like to see the other options. It would be really funny. What's this? Introducing the provide. Does it?
See, that looks like a moose taking a dump, or a beaver taking a dump. I want to say, actually, I really liked your opening.
Oh, thank you.
Now, did you create it? Did you?
My husband created that.
Wonderful. Tell him kudos.
Thank you. I will. He does all my little like openings and things like that.
Nice.
I appreciate that. I will let him know.
Yeah.
Matthew Hammond, thank you for the $10. Gary of Nerdrotic is starting Stargate this year. Yay! His initial watch ended at Emancipation. I told him that the last popular episodes are in the first season as they were figuring out the series.
Look,
that's cool.
Tell Gary at Nerdrotic that the show gets really good in season 4. He basically mentioned an episode called Emancipation. And I remember it was the first episode of Stargate I ever watched before I even knew about, the show. And it was so bad. It was actually, it was awful. It was actually written by a writer who wrote the exact same episode on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Wow.
And I was like, this looks like a terrible show. I never watched it. And then we got the opportunity to pitch. And I was like, guys, I don't think I can do it. I can't do this show. And I was sent scripts and other episodes. And I was like, actually, this show's pretty good. And ended up watching. Also tell Gary to check out Dark Matter.
Yes. I told
Dark Matter
him
2013.
Yeah, I told him before.
Tell him
I
that.
was like,
Yeah.
I've been trying. I also told him to watch Babylon 5. He started for a while, and then I think he gave up because something else came up. But I told him to go back to that. You've seen B5, right?
Oh yeah.
God, I'm at the 5th season now on my, I think, a second rewatch, and a lot of tears gonna be coming soon. I tell you, I've already cried. That one of the worst, not cancellation, but one of the worst replacements was Ivanova. Like, I was like, why did they have to get rid of her? Why?
Great.
She's so good. Thank you, Matthew, for that super chat. We've got Russell Hall. Thank you for the $2. Says Canadian Army is an oxymoron. No comment. John Burns for $5 says, Joe, is your action adventure show in your action adventure show, can you have moose, like blood splatters to honor those uniforms? Government gets the lowest bid. Do they care?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't think the government cares about anything. John Burns for Toonie says Tom Hanks in Big. I don't get it. Great movie. I haven't seen Big for like years.
Yeah, same.
It's been a long. In fact, I haven't seen a Tom Hanks movie in years.
Yeah.
I kind of went, I was just like, Tom Hanks. I'm over that guy. After that whole COVID situation, I was like, I'm over a lot of these actors. It's really hard to separate the art from the artist. Also, he did what's his name, Mr. Rogers. I didn't even watch it because I heard it was terrible rendition, and I love Mr. Rogers. So I was like, if you're gonna like, no to that.
Noted.
Thank you, Russell Hall, for the $2. Says, I think it might be pixelated Trudeau in blackface. Wow.
Could be.
Yeah, that's a good theory. TZ Burton, thank you so much for that $4.99, says, is that Canadian uniform designed by 8-bit Leisure Suit Larry?
Oh, I used to.
That's
great.
funny.
Yeah.
That's a good game.
Yes.
Speaking of games, any good games you played recently?
No, actually, I can't do gaming because if I do gaming, then it would just take up all of my
Too
time.
much of your time.
Although, now that you mentioned it, another project that I'm kind of pursuing is a game, a fairly well-established game, an adaptation. So we'll see how things go.
Ooh, that's exciting. You'll have to tell me like what it is in the private chat.
Yeah.
You know who I talked to, speaking of games and game actors, Tom Clancy's voice actor, Jeff Trevanian.
Oh, he is great. Jeff is wonderful.
He's great. And he was part of Dark Matter. And that's how I met him, was through PJ's stream that we all did together. And he came on just a few months ago to promote his new horror movie, Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Did you see it?
I have not seen it because I'd moved on to
you didn't
crime
watch
shows
it in
by
your
that time.
horror rewatch or horror watch month?
I ended my horror watch before Thanksgiving came out. So
you were like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. After like 300 movies, I'm going to give it a rest.
Dude, I could not believe you went that far with the horror watch, because I can only handle like maybe like 1 or 2 horrors. Like
just do like 1, sometimes 2 a day.
I don't know how. Like my mind would be like, I can't. Like my mind would explode. It's too dark, Joe. How could you do that to yourself? It's too dark.
Yeah, well, as someone who basically works in the industry, I kind of approach it. It's kind of hard to sort of immerse yourself or lose yourself in it. A lot of the times you go in as sort of like the writer guy, and you're critiquing the writing mostly, or you're critiquing the direction, or
the magic is kind of gone for you.
Where did the money go? How did they do that scene? Approach it from more of a
like a critical eye view. Yeah, the magic is gone for you, Joe. That I feel bad.
It has.
What was your favorite one?
Surprisingly, I liked a lot of the foreign horror movies. Like there was, I think, an Argentinian one called Aterrados, which was I think Terrified, which was great. there's a one called I think it was a Norwegian called Speak No Evil. It's very weird about this this couple on vacation. They meet this other couple on vacation, and the other couple invites them to their family home, and the wife's like, I don't want to go, and the father, and then the husband's like, come on, let's go, and they bring their kid, and just the wheels come off, and it's very very weird.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm gonna ask I work for a Norwegian guy on Mondays. I do a show called
I
Toxic
think
Femininity
I'm saying
on Midnight
Norwegian. It
Touch.
could be Finnish. I don't know. I put together a list, like my top 10 horror marathon watches. One that may not be classified as a horror movie, but I would classify it as such, was The Menu. Kind of being a foodie.
I like that movie.
Oh
my God, that was a good movie.
Yeah.
See, that was one of those movies that was surprising.
Yeah.
Like I went in being like, this is gonna be shit.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I don't think this is gonna be.
I was cautiously optimistic and actually surpassed my my expectations. So
that was absolutely definitely surpassed my expectations as well. And that's definitely one of the kind of like the horror movies that I like. I like the psychological horror, like I like those kind of things. So if you ever hear of any other movies that's like that, you let me know.
Yeah, Speak No Evil is kind of like that too.
Speak No Evil? I'm writing that down.
Oh no, sorry, is it here? Yeah, Speak No Evil. Yeah.
Did you hear or see the new one that's coming out with
Longlegs?
Nick Cage?
No.
Apparently he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I've heard really good things about that. I'm actually kind of excited. What is it called again?
Longlegs, I think. Longlegs?
That's right. That's right. That thing, dude, I watched the trailer and I was like, the trailer's kind of freaky.
I've not seen the trailer. I've just heard good things.
Don't watch the trailer.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go in cold. That's the best.
Yeah. Starship Aldous for 5 says the Canadian Army couldn't fight its way out of a paper bag.
Yeah, they don't have to do much fighting.
Thankfully, thank God. Joe, it has been absolutely amazing to have you come on here and talk about everything. Thanks for hanging out with me while we watched that Biden speech. My God, I can't believe you didn't fall asleep. I really appreciate
it. Was short. It was short and sweet, and just in terms of sort of speeches go, was not bad. It kind of inconsequential, I think, but not
proof
bad.
of life is good. Proof of life is good.
Yes, actually, more than anything, it's good to see he's still he's still with us.
It really is good to see actually that he's still there. But thank you for coming on and hanging out with me, giving me your time. I want to do this again, so definitely let me know about when you want to do your show.
I will. Stuff. Maybe I'll have good news for you sometime in the near future.
Definitely. And I will help you with your StreamYard or like whatever you need to do to set it up. Great. I will help you. You just hit me up and be like, hey, I need your help. I'm there.
Excellent.
And speaking of good news, as you know, I do a good news show Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you're ever feeling like, oh my God, this world is just too crazy, tune into that show, Joe. I will white pill you.
Perfect. Okay.
I will tell you, like, there's still good humans out there. So good humans like you and your wife, which is so lovely.
Thank you.
Your wife is amazing. And so again, thank you. I would say plug your wares. You don't really have a channel.
No, just find me on X, Baron Destructo.
There you go. His links are in the description. And again, thank you, chat, everybody watching on the multiple platform. We were live on Rumble, X, and YouTube. I won't be doing this again, probably on YouTube for breaking the narrative, anyways. And John is screaming at us. Watch Peter Dinklage and Julia Lewis in the Thicket next month. Okay, I will do that. Thank you, John, and everybody else for the super chats, gifted memberships, membership messages, or if you became a member, thank you so very much for supporting the channel. And until next time, you guys, hang in there.
Ciao.
Bye.